I'm Noah Carden.
And I'm Aaron J. Shelton.
We're the co-hosts of Thinking Too Hard About Anime. The show is an episode-by-episode deep dive into some of our favorite anime. We give you some history, some film critique and analysis, and overall, we try to figure out what makes the series we cover so great.
For our first season, we're covering Cowboy Bebop, and we are both gigantic fans of the series.
I own an original 2001 Swordfish 2 and Faye and Spike figure.
And I started smoking because of Spike. I don't anymore, but he was the impetus for it. So yeah, the show has deeply affected us, and we're very excited to talk about it. Come along with us as we think too hard. We're bi-monthly, with episodes coming out every other Thursday. You can listen on Anchor or wherever you get your podcasts.
Hey, this is Russ Payton with the Rolling Public Radio. This is RPPR episode 177, Savage Worlds. And with me is special guest Kyle from Best Pal Brigade.
Hi, everyone. I'm Kyle. Any and all pronouns are fine. I'm very excited to be here, Ross. I feel like I've been on the show a lot recently.
Yeah, no, it's like I've been playing a lot of online games with you. And so that's kind of the... sort of an interesting topic right now, but so for this episode, we're going to be talking about Savage Worlds because it's a popular system that I barely dabbled in. I'm a dabbler, but you've done more than dabble. You've dived into it. We're going to be alliterating. So
do a lot of work in Savage Worlds.
So just so you know, so for news, Best Pal Brigade and RPPR are doing a crossover kind of live stream podcast thing where Kyle has been running a 3-part adventure. We've done the first 2 parts. The third part will be the May 30th at let's see,
7 p.m. ES time.
Yeah,
Eastern time.
Yeah.
6 Central. Sorry. I'm so excited. I've been having so much fun with it. We just did the second episode last night. And if this episode goes live, I believe that listeners listening to it like the week of release will be able to catch it Saturday the 30th at 7 p.m. Eastern time.
Yeah.
What an organic plug.
Yeah, what a very, very organic. And if not, we are recording these and I will post them up on RPPR Actual Play at some point. I'm not sure about the exact scheduling. But it's me, Aaron, Thad, and Noah, and the one not RPPR, well, kind of a friend of RPPR, Broa.
Broa.
Yeah, and we're having a lot of fun doing it. I'm playing a bit. Kyle's been very nice to indulge me in my vaporwave kick.
You're playing a vaporwave DJ,
yep.
And I knew that I was gonna get caught up in like Ross's pace. I said this on stream last night, but like I knew that I was gonna try and catch everyone up in my pace, but I knew that Ross was also gonna like get the peanut butter in my chocolate. When he was like, yeah, my friend, my agent's name is HBO 1983 Intro. And I was like, well, fuck. It's going to be like that.
Yeah. The HBO 1983 Intro is a great piece of music. It's just, God.
With the amount of times it gets hummed in the game, I would have to believe it is.
Yeah. God, you haven't seen it?
I have.
Okay, good.
It's just it's like every time we say the name, someone says like a few notes of it, just like very faintly.
It's pretty much me. It's all me. One more piece of RPPR news is my book Zombies of the World has been reprinted by Andrews McNeil, a fairly very large actually publishing company, but they are distributing around the world. It's a hardcover book now, gorgeously printed. It'll be out June 9th, and I'll have a link on our show notes of the Andrew McNeil's page. You can order it from Amazon, Barnes & Noble, whatever bookstore. It's fine. It's all the same to me. If you like zombies, if you want a book about the different species of zombies, if you're a fan of the genre, please consider pre-ordering or ordering if it's already, by the time you listen to it, it's already out. Yeah. So I can do more books with Andrews McNeil.
Buy his book, etc., etc.
Yeah.
It's so
But
good.
I have been actually getting to play Savage Worlds. We have run one game of it on RPPR, and I think we have a couple other recorded games. Tom actually did get to play some Savage Worlds of Accursed, I believe.
Oh, that's a really good third-party publisher setting. Curse was actually going to be one of the ones I talked about when we talked about the
Well, we could definitely
licensing
talk
program.
about it.
Yeah, absolutely.
But we haven't really done much in the system, and so that's sort of. Also, in other news, before we get into that, we are doing weekly live streams on the RPPR Patreon Discord. It only takes $2 a month to join. We're streaming weird videos and obscure movies and all kinds of fun things. What you'll have to join the Discord to find out for the times, but I will post right before we do it on social media, so you can if you keep an eye out. But yeah, it's been a lot of fun. RPPR cast members hang out, and we talk stuff, and just chat with all the patrons. So that's just a fun thing we're doing. But
Do it.
Yeah. And I think I am going to be getting more into live streaming stuff as we progress.
We were talking about that last night too. I'm excited to answer any questions you have as I also fumble my way through figuring it all out.
Yeah. So like I mentioned, RPPR has been aware of Savage Worlds for a long time, but we haven't really. My introduction with the system was somebody who ran one game of it. It was the first game we'd ever played together. I can't remember the guy's name, and it was not a very good adventure, so it didn't really impress me.
Fucking rip. Jeez.
Yeah, this was a long time ago. This is probably like 2010 or something like that. But
oh my god,
yeah,
a decade. Oh my god.
Yeah. Something like that. It was a while ago, and it was just a basic zombie apocalyptic adventure, and I was just like, okay, whatever. This is and so I just never really got into it. So I liked Day After Ragnarok, the one shot I'd done of it, that setting. So I we wanted to branch out a bit, but it's never been. I actually considered Savage Worlds for Base Raiders, but I wanted to make Base Raiders a standalone game. Instead of a setting. So that's why it's in Fate, because I could use the full Fate OGL rules and just put them in there.
But have the whole, just you only need to buy the one book. Mm-hmm. I can definitely see the value in that.
Yeah. So I've never really had much opinion of it, but I've had a lot of fun playing Savage Tokusatsu. And so, but Kyle, you've just immersed yourself in the Savage Worlds ecosystem, I guess.
I would say that I'm fairly well ingrained. I don't want to say like, oh, I'm well known. Like, I don't think that we're well known, but like every now and then I'll spot like when we were at PAX South, some of the San Antonio Savages, like one of the groups down there, were playing Savage Tokusatsu like one of the nights that we were there. I couldn't make it out to like see what was happening live in the wild, but oh my god, it like blows my mind that random people I have no contact with are enjoying the stuff we make. It's really whack.
Oh wow, that's really cool. So it is. Yeah, whenever I hear somebody, running Base Raiders, I'm like, well, it's a real game. It exists outside of my object permanence is a thing.
It's such like a strange phenomena, but like, so I guess since I'm a bit of the veteran here, Ross.
Yeah. Why don't you?
What questions do you have that you want me, the expert, to answer? Can't even keep a straight face.
Yeah. Why can't you just give us can you give us a overview of the system? Like it's sort of like what is the elevator pitch for Savage Worlds as a game?
So Savage Worlds as a game, the way I have long pitched it to basically anyone, and it's remained pretty consistent through like the edition change that recently just happened and things like that. It's basically Savage Worlds is an incredibly simple role-playing game that is more combat simulator with a focus on simple dice mechanics, quick resolution, and pulpy adventure. Like one of the big taglines that the Savage Worlds community uses, I think it's even like official marketing, is like fast, furious, and fun. In general, It's about keeping up like a certain pace to make sure that it's a system that doesn't really get bogged down with like flipping through 3 different rule books to find the one special rule for how far you can jump or how grappling works. D20 is what pushed me to Savage Worlds actually originally, because I saw it at like a local game store for $10, like an actual soft cover version of the previous edition of the book. So I picked it up and I fell in love with it. So like it is my go-to, like, do you want to learn how to play role-playing games with like a simple and intuitive system? Then Savage Worlds is the game I'm going to run with you. Also, if you want to get into role-playing games, it has a super small page count and it costs 10 American dollars to get what it used to cost 10 American to get a physical, but now you can get the PDF for 10 American. And I think the single hardcover book is only like $35, maybe something like that. So it's super, super cost effective. And I know with a lot of the groups that I play with, that's like a very big and important thing. So fast, fun combat, good integration of role-playing mechanics, and cost effective.
Okay. And of course, another sort of the main book though, does that sort of has a little bit of everything in terms of like what kind of mechanics are setting specific, like magic or psychic power.
Yeah, it's much like a Fate or like a Genesis. It's a system, a setting agnostic system. So it's much more of like a toolbox than like highly specialized systems. You don't have to put in a lot of work to like adapt it to certain settings. There's rules for magic. There's rules for like laser weaponry and advanced armors. And then they have additional books that you can get that provide more and more specialized rules for certain genres you want to emulate, like horror or fantasy or sci-fi or superpowers.
Yeah. So it kind of reminds me a lot of GURPS in terms of the publishing model, because you have GURPS and then you have, GURPS X, which is, whatever topic you, like you're saying, superpowers or horror, whatever, or magic. And then of course, but unlike GURPS, there is a very robust third-party licensing system for Savage Worlds. So there's a good number of Savage World settings out there.
There's a lot of like really interesting third party and official settings. And like, I would say unlike GURPS, the official like setting rule books are like laser focused. There's not like 500 books that you need to get. But if you want to dabble in third party, that's when you can get more and more of these like nitty gritty rule books. I know that a personal favorite of Ross is they actually have an officially licensed Rifts setting for Savage Worlds, right. Like published by Pinnacle. Yeah, it's a whole thing. I would say that it's a lot less messy than the old Rifts.
Well, sure, because I mean it's a system that actually works. It's not the fucking Canadian system. Yeah, no, I mean, yeah, Savage Worlds would definitely work for Rifts because yeah, that's why you can never play it, because you can't. Yeah, no, that kind of defeats the purpose of Rifts, which is to have a janky ass system totally broken and
super busted.
Yeah,
but yeah,
that's part of the fun. Like,
yeah, exactly. But like, if you want to play like a weird West setting, there's the old Chestnut of Deadlands. If you want to play like sci-fi, there's Rifts. If you want to play like pirate shit, there's 50 Fathoms. But then. In my opinion, the real strength of the Savage Worlds like rule set is the community that's around it. There's obviously room for improvement in any community, but I will say that the Savage Worlds community is usually pretty good about not being like shitty creep bags. And they're usually pretty good about actually giving good constructive feedback. So a good amount of the third-party published materials are of like an actual really high quality.
Oh, cool. Are there any ones that really stand out to you?
Well, like we said before, there's a Cursed, which I really, really enjoyed. That's like a Castlevania Bloodstained inspired
you can play as the monsters. Which is why Tom liked it. So,
we've played a few games of that. That was really fun. There are like Titan Effect is, I would say that it's sort of like a lighter-hearted, less less bleak Eclipse phase. It's kind of like sci-fi, but it has a bit of like a supers cut to it. There's the wonderful Savage Tokusatsu, the excellent Star Streamers, but we don't have to talk about those terrible games. But yeah, there's a lot of really, really good stuff. But what interests me the most is a lot of like the smaller publications that come out where it's more focused on like, here's a short little document that details like a new way for Magic to function. And unlike with like Venetian Magic or whatnot, there are actual rules that make Magic feel different despite it all running on the same very simple Magic system that it uses. Like if you critically fail a roll, or sometimes if you just roll a 1 on your spellcasting check, you might suffer from like a different adverse effect that will affect you differently, like the use of trappings that describe like the details of how a power works create these really interesting synergies and conflicts. There's Savage Worlds relies super heavily on like, which is, I want to stress, like this is pretty rare with combat simulator games, but Savage Worlds is to me very engaging because it relies super heavily on players being able to be creative on the fly and kind of narrate certain aspects and conflicts with like how certain things will interact. And you don't often get that in like the other large role-playing game competitors. There's a lot of flex room in Savage Worlds, which is what draws me to it because I'm a little dipshit and I just like to bend things as far as humanly possible.
So yeah, before we should probably get into give it sort of a brief overview of the mechanics of Savage Worlds to give people an idea of like what, not like a full rules tutorial, but like what is the simple way to roll, because you know, like most RPGs, you have attributes and skills, but like in Savage Worlds, your attributes only matter so much as they cap what your skills can go to. Isn't that right? Usually,
it's more tied to like the character creation and leveling up process, but yeah, I'll give like the super condensed version of like Savage Worlds mechanics. You make your characters. All player characters are what's referred to as a wild card. There are some NPCs or monsters or whatnot that are also wild cards, but everyone else is referred to as an extra. And there are differences between the two. The big difference is a wild card, anytime they try to make like any roll that isn't essentially like damage, they roll whatever the skill die or the attribute die that they need to roll. They roll that in addition to a separate D6, and they use whichever die rolls higher. Extras don't get that extra D6 because they're not wild cards. That's the simplest way to explain it. 90% of the rolls resolve against the target number of 4, and dice explode. So like if you get the highest number, so like if you get a 6 on your D6, then you get to roll it again and add it together. And then whichever die, which are tracked separately, has the highest number at the end of a roll is the number that you take. And for every 4 above the target number you get what's called a raise, which is similar to this game's version of a critical success because those don't really exist here. The more raises you get, the better or the faster or the more efficient you do an action. That is the super simplest way to describe how it works. And it keeps the game flowing really, really fast because if everything for the most part resolves against the number 4, I don't have to keep track of 100 different DCs or like target numbers.
Yeah, because I do remember from back in the day that when I was reading about that, they did mention you could use, there are sort of simplified, or it could be used even for mass combat. Like you could have not just like abstract a group of people as one character and use that, but like have a bunch of characters fighting each other because of also the system is very simple in the sense that like characters have like 3 wounds by default, and like once they take 3 wounds, they're out. And then of course every wound they take, there's a bit of a death spiral effect where they are wounded and they have penalties to their rolls. That's like -2 per wound or something like that.
It's so each wound, a wild card can suffer 3 wounds before being incapacitated. Extras can suffer 0 wounds before being incapacitated. And there's also like a floating equivalent of like a hit point called being shaken, but the long and short of it is like, yes, there is kind of a death spiral effect. There are ways to mitigate that regardless of the setting that you're playing in. But if you like role-playing games that actually have combat damage be reflective of like a decrease in potency, then Savage Worlds will suit you well. But if you kind of like like a person is as dangerous with 1 hit point as with 100 hit points, then you might kind of have a hard time like grokking to that specific aspect of it. It can be hit or miss. Like, I'm not here just to sing the praises of Savage Worlds. There are some problems with the system, and some players noticeably don't like that death spiral effect like you've described.
Have you tried it as a mass combat thing? Have you tried like because I know like we did the theater of the mind kind of combat when we were playing Savage Tokusatsu, but you could do it. There are rules for like grids and minis and that kind of thing.
The base rules are actually designed around like miniature combat. I play it very fast and loose with narrative combat because it's just easier to just be like, yeah, you're within range, or like, yeah, you're within range, but with a -1. But Savage Worlds started as a war game. And that sort of shows in its entire assumptions of like how the game works. So it does work extremely well. Like I very much enjoy miniature combat. In fact, one of my shout outs today is a war game, but you can absolutely do that. It works really, really well for that. And if you want to even take it to like a step further, you can do like actual skirmishes with it, or you can use sort of the rule abstraction called mass battles, which sort of lets you cover gigantic conflicts without having to put out 100,000 minis. Like the toolbox is surprisingly robust, and that's kind of what allows me to run the same system different ways, whether or not I'm running it in person or online.
So yeah, I do like it. But yeah, there are these, you mentioned these weaknesses, and you mentioned a lot of times that this is more of a combat simulator, than like, could you describe how you mean that combat simulator versus like, what is the other type of RPG to you, or like, what are the other?
Sure.
Yeah.
So like, I want to stress this. I love combat simulators. I don't say this is like a mark against the game, but like I would describe Dungeons and Dragons is not a role-playing game. It is a combat simulator. I would say Savage Worlds is more of a role-playing game than Dungeons and Dragons because it's less like Calvin Ball. It actually has some rules for social interaction. But when I say a game is a combat simulator, basically that the shorthand formula for that is like what amount of the page count is dedicated to rules for combat and like violent conflict. And after a certain threshold, that's when I sort of start to say, okay, this game has such a heavy focus on like specific character options dedicated solely to combat and, you know, somewhat robust rules for doing battle and like how all that shakes out. That's what to me makes a combat simulator a combat simulator. And if I was to sort of describe like what the alternatives are, I would say that there's combat simulators, there's exploration simulators, and there's interaction simulators. Like, it sounds kind of pretentious to frame them that way, and I don't often frame the other ones that way, but I would describe like an exploration simulator would be like a Ryutama or something like that, where the game is much more focused on like travel. I would also call Torchbearer an exploration simulator. And then interaction simulators are games that have much more of a focus on like the actual act of social interaction as your characters. And to me, that sort of covers a good amount of like Powered by the Apocalypse games, like Monster of the Week or even Blades in the Dark to an extent, though that one does get pretty crunchy with the combat. But that's sort of how I would break it down. Savage Worlds has a very clear focus both in its community and in its rules text towards combat.
So, part of the reason why, probably the main reason why this Savage Worlds is so robustly supported is because it has this sort of very open licensing system. Could you talk a little bit about that?
Sure. So when BPB signed on, when me, Kat, and Lauren wanted to like actually start officially publishing for it, Savage Worlds has a licensing system rather than like an OGL or anything like that. There's no SRD. And so we had to basically get in touch with Pinnacle Entertainment Group, the company that publishes it, and go through like a submission process where we had to submit a sample of our work so that they could judge to see if it's like a high enough quality. And we went through that. We got approved very, very quickly. And then they changed the process a little bit. I'm not super clear on what the process to become what's referred to as like an ACE, which is their word for licensees now. But for the most part, I can't imagine it's much different. Like say, hey, we want to write for you. They say, okay, please submit, like follow this style guide that we have on our pitch website, send it in, get approved. And then you can officially sell Savage Worlds rules wherever you want, as long as you attribute and include the certain logo that they provide for you, usual licensing stuff.
Mm-hmm.
But the other option for people who maybe don't want to do this, and this is something that we've talked about in, ironically, a previous episode I was on about Drive-Thru RPG and Itch, is they have an equivalent for Savage Worlds to the Dungeon Masters Guild. I believe it's called the SWAG, the Savage Worlds Adventuring Guild. I don't think any of them understand that SWAG might not be the best acronym, because I always do that little hand motion swag. But it's basically the DM's Guild, except it's a lot more ethical. It's still run by OBS, so it's an absolute fucking nightmare. But you don't lose your intellectual property. Pinnacle Entertainment Group takes like the absolute minimum of a cut that OBS would allow them to take, which I think is really cool of them to do. And then you just publish it to Drive-Thru RPG only through the Savage Worlds Adventuring Guild. And you can sell it that way. And a lot of people sort of dip their toes into third-party creation for the first time there. And there's a lot of good stuff there. A lot of like good like one-sheet adventures or rule books, not rule books, but like options for player characters or dungeon masters. So depending on how you want to publish, there are two different routes you can go down. One's a lot easier, but you don't make as much and you're limited to where you can sell. And the other, you can kind of just go buck wild as long as you don't like violate the code of conduct that Pinnacle puts in front of you. And if you're a decent person, you're probably not going to violate that code of conduct, so you're good.
Yeah. But I mean, they have to have it. So, because of the world we live in. Yeah.
Oh yeah.
So, one thing that came up, I realized Savage Worlds is a fun system, but as you mentioned earlier, it's not suitable for everything, every type of game. And obviously, no game is that's of course for me always sort of a truism. I hate people say, oh, this is a universal RPG. You can play any type of adventure you wanted to. It's like, no. If you're everything, you're nothing. Like, I mentioned it's fast, furious, fun, very pulpy, but there are some downsides to that because it in terms of like characters only having 3 wounds, this sort of came up in our game last night where we managed to one-shot a boss. 2 bosses, actually.
2 bosses. It was terrible, with exploding dice and somewhat
Bennies.
Low wound thresholds and bennies.
Yeah, with the guarantee rerolls.
It happens. It happens a lot. It happens a lot on stream. I'm sure that someone somewhere has clipped a bunch of different versions of me watching all of my bosses just be fucking disintegrated.
Yeah, but I'm sure that could also happen in reverse too. Player characters are also relatively fragile. They have 3 wounds. Have you had to deal with that? Like, how do you, I guess that sort of prompts your sort of informs when you're running games. Like, well, guys, be aware that your characters are one bad roll and they're gone, or they're knocked. Yeah, depending on how you framed what happens when you're incapacitated.
I think that's true of like a lot of systems, but with a game that is as capable of like a fresh character creation character can kill a fully leveled threat, which is like Savage Worlds is, because that can happen because of exploding dice. But there are a couple of ways to sort of mitigate that. And some groups maybe like that super high dangerous energy, but other groups might not. And so there's an official rule that might help you with that. That's in the new core rulebook. And it's a rule that we've been sort of using as homebrew for a very long time. So I'm very excited to see, like, in this new edition, all of the ways that I had been playing that were homebrew basically became official rules in here. And then there's even some stuff that I hadn't even considered. But and then we have a rule that we use in a lot of our third-party publications that will help in that regard as well, specifically for game masters. Mm-hmm. But within the core rulebook, there's a rule called wound cap. And basically what that means is, like, you can never suffer more wounds than like a certain threshold. Mm-hmm. So if you make a soak roll, which is the way that a player character or a enemy can reduce damage suffered, as long as you get a success on the soak roll, you won't be incapacitated. So that ties into a finite resource that players can sort of role play to get more of, but it helps to sort of add more decision-making value to soaking rolls versus just suffering 100 damage, and no matter how many rolls how many successes you get on a vigor check to soak it, you're going to pass out no matter what. I think it's a pretty simple and elegant way to do it. And then for game masters, one thing that I've always done, and once we started publishing, I've started putting it in a lot of our books, is we build our monsters a little asymmetrically because that's how the system works. Mm-hmm. And we introduce a monster special ability called Indomitable. And basically what that means is from one attack, a monster can never suffer more than one wound. Like, it just, it caps it right there. And that works really well. We use it for our kaiju, and we use it for a lot of like monster of the week bosses in Savage Tokusatsu. And it's easy enough to just ignore if you like the sort of more squishy and like exploding like a bag of cottage cheese approach of core Savage Worlds.
Mm-hmm. Okay. But that's, something to keep in mind if you're deciding to run this system is, if a starting level character can take out a max level villain, or conversely a, minion can take out a max level player character, or most, veteran player character, with one really big exploding roll, that adds a lot of variability that some GMs might not like. But like, what kind of genres would you think are not good fits for Savage Worlds?
Ooh, so sort of like you said, I'm the type of player and GM who very much enjoys playing different systems for different settings. Mm-hmm. So when I say this, I don't say this as like a Savage Worlds fanboy, because I don't stan anything. But I think that Savage Worlds can kind of run just about anything. But if I'm playing a fantasy game, I'm probably going to play D20 despite my open scorn for it. If I want to play a horror game, like an actual, not like a pulpy horror game, I'll probably play like a Delta Green or a Call of Cthulhu. If I want to play like a teenage horror game, I'll play Monster of the Week. If I want to play Star Wars or like an official like setting, which I very rarely do, but like I'll play Edge of the Empire or something like that. But conversely, if I want to play Base Raiders, I'm going to play it in Savage Worlds because I really like how elegant the superhero system is in Savage Worlds. I think it's actually my favorite. But yeah, it all comes down to personal preference. Like, if you have another system that captures a genre that you want to emulate, play that system, because if you like it better, you're more likely to run it better and to have a more fun time, which will engage your other players at the table.
Okay. Like what other settings for Savage Worlds have you really liked? Now, I mean, no, we don't need to go into Savage Rifts anymore, but like,
fuck you. God. So like off the top of my head, I finally had a chance to sit down and read Crystal Hearts, which is done by Eran and Aviv. They do up to 4 players. It's like a web comic that teaches you various role-playing games with a heavy focus on Savage Worlds. Mm. And the comic's like in-game campaign is set in this Crystal Heart setting. I absolutely adore it. The stuff they've done with the rules is really, really fun. It's super colorful. There might be some pieces of art that maybe I'm not like super crazy about for various reasons,
Mhm.
but like the actual game itself is very elegant. It's very colorful, and it has like sort of that Final Fantasy level of like weird magic and tech/fantasy aesthetic that can be both lighthearted and dark simultaneously. Crystal Heart is one that I'm really looking forward to, like really digging in deep and getting into, like the Savage settings that are like, this is like the Mafia setting, or this is, like some other realistic setting. Those don't interest me, but that's just because I don't really like realistic games, and if I do, I'll play like a Delta Green or something.
Mhm.
It,
Mhm.
but yeah, like that's the one gun to my head that I'm the most excited to really dig into.
Cool. Yeah. Yeah, I know that Pinnacle does some interesting settings. I'm not quite sure. Well, to be honest, like East Texas University seemed always kind of a, all right, I guess that's a setting.
That's kind of how I feel about ETU as well. Like I
Yeah.
like the setting. I have the book. I really like it, but like I'm just going to run Monster of the Week. Even if I use the setting, I'm just going to do Monster of the Week.
Yeah. Yeah, that's just basically, it's a college campus, but there's weird supernatural stuff going on, and it's in Texas.
Yeah, it's very Buffy.
Yeah, yeah. And I'm like, oh, okay, that's an idea. Yep. I'm also looking on their drive-through page right now. I see, of course, Deadlands. They've didn't Pinnacle basically buy that out? Like it's now.
Oh no,
Uh,
Deadlands was Pinnacle.
okay, yeah, yeah.
Like
All right.
that's what launched Savage Worlds, basically.
Okay. And there's a Robotech setting. Of course there is.
Yeah, there's an officially licensed third-party Robotech setting. I haven't had a chance to look through it
Looting
yet.
Palladium's corpse. I see.
Picking the bones clean.
Yeah. God. And then of course the Interface Zero and Octoon Cthulhu, which are basically they're just passed among all the different settings systems. They're just, there's Octoon Cthulhu, these rules and that rules. It's just everywhere.
Cthulhu is very, very, very oversaturated in my opinion. I know that might be a hot take here on RPPR, but I'm tired of fucking Cthulhu.
How dare
I can't stand it.
Whoa. Yeah, I know. I mean, Interface Zero, I will always admire because they tied that in with fucking Octoon Cthulhu. There's a crossover adventure.
Is there?
Yes. At some point, I
Damn.
want to run it for fucking Caleb just so he'll be so angry at me. Because we're playing this game, but it's really with another game's rules. Ha ha ha! You thought you were playing a phase. We're playing Dread today, bitch. So
get him.
Yeah. Yeah. So are there? What are you working on next in Savage Worlds? Is it going to be another tokusatsu thing or something else?
Oh God. So I am very much, to the chagrin of everyone that works with me, I'm very much the type to bounce around all the time because, I don't have money for brain medicine, so I jump all over the place because I can't help it. So right now, Lauren from BPB Games wrote, and we're currently editing Volterra, which is a verdant fantasy horror setting all about like the horrors of nature and like the corruptions of capitalism and the nobility. And it's really good. I'm actually goddamn enamored with it. She's absolutely crushing it. And I'm sort of helping guide her with like the mechanical aspects of it. We're gearing up for an official like proper Kickstarter for Star Streamers, which is our science fantasy game of social media fame, which we use on stream fairly frequently. We're going to be starting like a second campaign of that soon, which has like no real ties or affiliations with the first campaign. So it's a great point to get in. And that's basically our game that we do our absolute best to like bridge the gap between tabletop role-playing game and live stream by having like a lot of chat interaction and like free or paid ways to donate to like either harm or help the players and interact with certain adventures elements and things like that. The first season was so fucking good, and I cannot believe how well it worked. We had stuff that we had prepared for in advance that we were like, well, what if some shit heels come in? But that didn't really happen. And everyone sort of got it. Like the chat role plays as their own unique characters. Certain chat members can get like summoned into the game to participate in like certain scenes or combats or things like that. I absolutely goddamn adore that setting. And that's all three of us working together very hard on that one. And yeah, beyond that, it's just a bunch of very small releases that we're working on. A lot of them are in Savage Worlds. We got kind of screwed over by COVID coming and shaking everything up and pushing the Deadlands Kickstarter around, and then the Deadlands Kickstarter sort of ate up what was supposed to be the Volterra Kickstarter, and now a lot of stuff is just in very uncertain places. But if that's like the absolute worst of what we have to deal with right now, that's very fortunate. Like that's the worst thing that our business has to suffer through. But yeah, fantasy horror, big old parody of social media and like clout chasing.
Nice. So yeah, Savage Worlds. It's certainly worth trying out if you haven't already. And take a listen or watch Savage Tokusatsu to see how it plays out in action. And Kyle Katrad is voice modder. Yeah.
I have it in front of me.
Oh yeah. Do you want to give us a sample of what it? The joys of streaming games. So
yeah, it's definitely great to have that online play, but you just hit them with like a little bit of the counter-terrorists win. Just all that. I've been using it for like monster voices and stuff. It's an art that I'm learning, and I really like it.
I appreciated the countdown to the base blowing up last night. That was fun. I mean, and the villains, of course.
But like some of the easier on the ears ones are always super fun.
Sure.
5 seconds till detonation.
It's way more pleasing to the palate.
Yeah, exactly. So when we get back, we'll have some shout outs. We're back. I might even put in the HBO 1983 intro music for this.
You fucking better. I'll be upset if you don't.
Because it's a really good piece of music. And I'm very sad there's no like really good vaporwave remixes of it out there, at least that I've found. I have not found any yet. There may be one on an obscure Bandcamp that I haven't, or SoundCloud that I haven't.
Tweet your links to good vaporwave remixes of the HBO 1983 intro to Ross.
Yes, there
at
you go.
Ross
please.
Payton.
So for shout outs, haven't been reading a lot lately. Been watching a lot of stuff and playing some video games, getting back into that. So my first shout out is Tonight We Riot, a riot simulating game. It's a side-scrolling crowd brawler. That's where you control one character and a bunch of other allies follow you around and fight alongside you, and you can kind of command them. It's a very minor subgenre. There's only 2 other games I'm really aware of that do this. Sea Salt and Othkos. But Tonight We Riot is a lot of fun because you're fighting the man, and some of your upgrades include like getting, your weapons include bricks and Molotov cocktails. There's in one of the early levels you can find a dog who speaks Greek. It's based on a real dog that was photographed standing alongside protesters in riots in Athens a couple years ago.
Damn.
Yeah. And it's got these lovely pixel graphics, and the people who make it are a worker collective, so they're living what they speak. So
I know that they're also doing. I don't know like the scope of it, but I know that they have and probably will continue to do hardship copies. So like if you're having financial hardships and you tweet at them, there's a pretty good chance that they might just like hook you up if that's something that you're interested in and something that you want to get your hands on, but financially can't.
Yeah. I bought it. It's on Steam. It's on PC and Switch. So it's out there, and it's fun. And they have the couch co-op mode, which I haven't tried out yet. But they also have this thing where you like one person who owns it on Steam can like send a copy out to another person they play together online.
I think that's true of like any Steam game with local play now, I believe.
Okay. I haven't investigated that yet, but I will try it out at some point.
Sounds cool.
But have you been playing anything lately?
Oh God. In terms of like playing, I don't think I've really been playing any video games except for like Final Fantasy 14 again, but no one wants to fucking hear about that.
Yeah.
Tabletop wise, I've been playing a war game, which I mentioned earlier. I've been playing Frostgrave, which is a really elegant like squad skirmish game. There's Frostgrave Core, where like you have a war band controlled by a wizard and an apprentice, and then there's Frostgrave Ghost Archipelago, which basically your group is run by the equivalent of a fantasy superhero and like a druid. And we've sort of been mashing those rules up to run little skirmish games in our ongoing like fantasy world to like add extra conflict in regions that we're not actively campaigning in right now. And it's been really, really fun. It's a very simple, elegant game that mostly just runs, I believe, almost exclusively with like a D20, but it's not, like a Dungeons and Dragons style role resolution. Very simple, very quick to learn, very affordable, and it, unlike Warhammer or War Machine, the book flat out says just use whatever you want for miniatures. Like you're fine, you're good, don't sweat. Like we have some if you want them, but you're good. Really recommended enough if you like war skirmish games that can use 2 to more players.
Cool. Yeah, it's one of those games I've seen and I just haven't, like, I would like to try it at some point, but for me, when I was playing minis, it was Conflict 47 is what grabbed the interest of the other minis playing players. You have to like compromise like everybody. And also then we got into Gloomhaven, and Gloomhaven ate a year.
That'll just consume the whole damn thing. I'm trying to figure out if I can like run Frostgrave with other people like on Roll20. I think that you
probably could.
Yeah, like it's pretty simple. So if we ever have an interest in that, I would be totally down to play a game with you on Roll20.
There's not a shout out specifically, but I do know like Lancer has a lot of that as well. They're building up Roll20 support, and they have that app that helps run it as well. So at some point, maybe in a few months, I might want to like investigate Roll20 and running Lancer online and stream that through Twitch. Yeah, so that's something to think about, but that's a maybe. I haven't committed to that. But in speaking of strategy, though, I have started playing XCOM Chimera Squad, which is a turn-based strategy game, side game. Not quite XCOM 3. It's definitely it's set after XCOM 2, and so there's the humans have won. XCOM has won. They've driven off the elders, but there are all these aliens and hybrids left behind, and so they are all working, have to live together. And so you're playing this Chimera Squad, which has humans, aliens, and hybrids, and you all have to deal with these bad guys doing bad things in the city 31. And so it's XCOM like, but sped up, because instead of having to like laboriously move your units across big ass battlefields and like, where's that last squad? It's they cut to like breach, and then there's the bad guys. All right, you killed all the bad guys. Let's move on to the next screen. Breach, yeah, and so I quite like it because, you can get through missions faster, but there's more options, and they've just cut down a lot of XCOM, especially in the later things, was just like, where's the last enemy? Oh God. Mm-hmm. And then like the whole strategy in XCOM 2 was like moving your units in such a way to activate one enemy squad so you can wipe them out, but not activating too many enemy squads at the same time, because
so that they wipe you out.
Yeah. So yeah, in this one you're just facing one squad versus, you're outnumbered usually, almost always, but like, yeah, it's not, you don't have to like find the patrolling guard. They're all there. So
well, I mean, it's good to know that you recommend it, because I've been on the fence about getting Chimera Squadron for a while. So it's nice to hear that it's actually like fun and engaging. So I'll probably pick it up.
Yeah, if you like XCOM, if you like the new XCOMs, it's definitely like sped up. I mean, and it's only a $20 game, but yeah, it's it's quite good. I mean, it'll probably go on sale. Like the pre-order bonus was 50% off, so I got it for $10. So I'm sure it'll go on sale again.
A pre-order bonus that actually contributes value to a game. That's
yeah.
fucking buck wild.
Yeah, I know, right? Like it was weird. But yeah, it's quite fun. I mean, you can't customize your characters like you can in XCOM, which is some people like they actually have voice lines and personalities.
Okay, so it's like story focused rather than like letting me role play focused.
Mm-hmm.
I'm good with that.
So I'm sure there will be mods that let you do things, and they'll I'm sure the mod scene will make up waifu special spec ops characters for you all to obsess over. But
all I know is that there is a Snake GF in the game, and that Twitter loves her.
Yeah, there's Torque. She does the snake thing that they do in XCOM 2. She's on your side.
That's fun.
Yep. But you've been there was another game you've been playing recently.
Oh shit! I forgot what I was gonna say. I had She-Ra lined up. Want to put a note here? What was my other shout out?
Pokemon Showdown.
Oh, bet. All right. Thank you. Jeez.
Sorry, since we're just doing games, I was just...
No, it's fine. You caught me off guard. I definitely was paying attention. Fully paying attention. We've been playing Pokemon Showdown would be my other shout out. If I'm not one of the people who was all upset about like the national dex cut or anything like that. I might have some issues with the pricing model for some of how they're handling adding Pokemon back into the game. But if you just want to play Pokemon battles with friends, there's an excellent online game called Pokemon Showdown that you can use to just get into a game, build a team, spend your IVs or EVs or whatever the hell, however you want, and then play a game with random people or play a game with like people that you know by challenging them to a match. There's a lot of different formats. We've specifically been using it on our stream to... Basically, everyone created gym sonas, like original the character Donut Steel gym leaders, which basically means all of us only have one Pokemon type, but we can, diversify our selections from within there as long as, like, for me, I'm the bug leader. So as long as all of my Pokemon at least have bug, I can pick whatever. And so we've been doing, like, gym leader tournaments that have been so much fun. I've been, like, dressing up and sharpieing on like a little handlebar mustache to like role play as like an announcer persona for these tournaments. It's been super fun. And if you like Pokemon and you just sort of want to give it a go, you can play it in your browser. Absolutely adore it. Cannot recommend it enough.
Cool. It does sound quite fun for all you Pokemon fiends. I have reinstalled Pokemon Go recently.
Oh no!
Because Maddie and I go on walks, and like, gotta have something to do on the walks. I mean, what would we do? Just talk?
What would we do? Just spend time together in love?
Yeah, exactly. No, we also look for squirrels. Maddie's a big fan of squirrels.
I did not know that.
Yeah, they don't have them in Australia, so like,
oh shit!
Yeah,
that actually makes total sense.
Yeah, they're just they're very cute. But anyways, aside from playing games, I have been watching some stuff. A lot of stuff not worth mentioning, but there is a movie Maddie and I watched that was actually quite good called Level 16. It's a dystopian thriller about this young girl, Vivian, who's lives in this underground society where she's taught to be obedient and docile and uphold feminine virtues. And,
Jesus fucking Christ.
And she's never seen the sun. And there's other girls with her. And the whole thing, is like, what's the secret of this society? Why are they living underground? And all this other stuff. And it's, what is the mystery behind it, and what's going on, and what will Vivian do when she finds the dark truth, because there's obviously a dark truth.
I would say that there's a dark obviousness to it.
Yeah. Well, there's a darker truth. All right. Yeah.
Oh no.
Yeah. Secrets and lies. And so yeah, it's a really good thriller. It's not quite, it's a little darker than a YA movie, I think, YA novel, but it's sort of adjacent to that. So yeah, no, it's definitely worth checking out. It's on various streaming sites. So,
So I guess to play off of things that you can watch on a television or computer that are aimed at a younger demographic, Kat and I just finished the last season of She-Ra and the Princesses of Power on Netflix. It is so fucking good. Like, I really, really, really liked it. My old man was always a big fan of He-Man, so like the extended She-Ra mythology was always something I was aware of, but like we watched the whole thing from season 1 to this, and it was very satisfying ending. Like it's not gonna shatter your expectations, but there is some stuff that happened that like as a queer person you just don't see very often, and it was really nice to see, and I feel like all the characters were very well handled, flaws and all, and if you are just looking for something good and a little lighthearted with a little bit of that angst in there just mixed in for good flavoring, definitely check out She-Ra and the Princesses of Power. I really liked it, and it's a complete work now, so like it's done, it's over.
Cool. Yeah, no, I have been seeing a lot of talk about Twitter on it, of course. Mostly people like Bridget liking or retweeting pictures of Adora and Catra.
Did Bridget watch it?
I think so. Maybe it wasn't Bridget. It was somebody. There's some people on my timeline who've been liking a lot of Adora, Catra.
That may have just been Kat. There's a very good possibility that's Kat.
Yeah,
but shit.
Fair.
I'm gonna ask her if she watched it, because I'm dying to talk to people about it.
Yeah, I don't know exactly, but I have seen a lot of it on my timeline. I just, whatever I see, women loving women, I just assume it's Bridget, I guess.
It's on brand.
Yeah, it's on brand. So, but yeah, that's our episode on Savage Worlds. If you're interested, if you have more questions about Savage Worlds as a system, please leave a comment, or I am at Ross Payton on Twitter, and Kyle, you are?
You can get in touch with me at BPB Games on Twitter.
Yep. And of course we're on our various Discords. Best Pal Games is twitch.tv/Best Pal
Brigade.
Best Pal Brigade. So
yeah.
I couldn't remember it was the same name or we had a different name for Twitch.
I mean, look, we did not expect to become a game company when we started the Twitch, and the branding we have fucked up, and I will own that.
Oh, that's fine. I mean, I just have 3 separate podcasts that aren't united at all, except for, the names, the RPPR, the Mix 6, and Night Clerk Radio. It's fine.
Yeah.
Why would I want people to cross over from one podcast to the other,
I don't even know.
Yep. I don't even know. So, thank you all for listening. We'll talk to you all next time.